So that's a power move.
What's up, guys? Good morning. Welcome to a new series I'm calling Power Moves, starring me and you. So these are going to be mainly topic-based videos where me and you talk about something that is, a hot take, something, in the community, something personal, pretty much whatever I decide is important enough to talk about. So first of all, I would like to just extend the most heartfelt, sincerest thank you for everyone that's been tuning in and for reaching 500 subscribers. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would have that many people that would care to watch anything I do. So that means just everything to me. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Everyone that's commented and reached out to me personally. You guys have just been wonderful. One thing I would like to do on this episode of Power Moves is really give you like a behind the scenes, almost like a retrospective of the first season. So let's start with like the genesis of it, right? So, I got into shmups about a year ago, shmups and arcade games about a year ago. And I felt like I went through all the content, all the videos, all the essays and everything extremely quickly because my brain just wanted to consume as much as possible. And I felt like I ran out of stuff to listen to. I work swing shift, so afternoons, and then the second half of my week is night shift. And night shifts get extremely boring, so podcasts are like the main thing that I would consume. And I felt like I had gone through all of them. I know that wasn't true. I had this yearning for more. And this was about, February, I guess. I had reached out on Reddit asking, like, what people would want to see. Because I knew what I wanted, but, like, what would other people want? It was mainly, everything that I got was a player focus is what they want. They want to hear about other people and their experiences, and I thought that was really compelling. I had put it off and put it off and put it off. I eventually ended up, getting the balls to start it, mostly because Chris from the Hidden Fortress was really, pushing me forward on that it was the right thing to do. Him and Spiders are really the ones that really pushed me the most to get out there. Once the ball started rolling, I wanted it to be kind of spicy and kind of, upfront and kind of harsh. But as it went on, it morphed into something that I feel like encapsulated me even better. It took a couple episodes for me to really understand that it's not a talk show. It's not an interview show. It's a conversation. It's me and the guest and you. And those three things mixed together are what creates the No Miss podcast. That's why every episode starts in the middle of a sentence, is because I want it to be like you walked in the door and you're walking into a conversation on two people. That is the essence of the No Miss podcast, is conversations between players, developers, community members, anybody that wants to be on. And as long as there's a flow to it, two people conversating, that is everything. Let's go through the episodes, right? We had the Hidden Fortress for episode 1. Chris is my best friend. Chris and me have been friends for 4 months now, and there's days that go by where I don't know how I would get through it without him. It's effortless when me and him talk for hours about nothing, about everything, about the world, about shmups, about Final Fantasy. It could be anything. Filming that episode, other than timing and scheduling, that was really the main issue. It was just an absolute blast. So then we had Kirby, or Psychromancer, co-op dependent. Kirby is another friend that I don't know what I would do without. Meeting him on that episode started a bond that I really just cannot find words for. He is thoughtful, just one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. He would give you a shirt off his back. He is absolutely amazing, and I know that was like the first thing he had ever done, so he was very nervous, and I completely understand that, because those first couple episodes, I had to write stuff down, even though I wanted it to be very much like this, very unscripted, very off the cuff. I had to write stuff down just in case I lost my way through the conversation, because I was so nervous on being filmed, on talking to people that I'd never talked to before in some cases. So I totally understand that. And Kirby, man, he's a real one. Episode 3 was Germinator. Germinator's brain, very much like Spider said in his episode, is this maze of thoughts and ideas. I remember whenever he texted me that he wanted to be a guest, he sent me a 7-minute voice memo. That was one of the deepest things that I'd ever heard in talking to people in the community. And it was then that I knew I had to have him on. I always saw him, because you're coming in as a novice, right? You see these players that are better than you. So everyone's kind of a super player, right? And I saw Germ that way. He had confidence. He had charisma. We talked a little bit before the podcast, and picking his brain is one of the most fun and interesting things that I've ever done. He could talk for hours, and you'd always find new topics to broach with him. He's so intelligent. Episode 4 was the first time that I got fanboyism, and it was Pan. I had been watching him since I started, so having him on was just this really cool, Inception kind of thing, where you're watching someone, and then all of a sudden they're on your show, and it gives this really cool feeling of, you've done it. You have succeeded in whatever you're wanting to do. Pan is so humble, but he's so good, and he will never admit that. He'll never admit that to you. He's so down to earth. He is the best of us. After that was Gojiguy. Gojiguy is what I would call a Renaissance man. He's kind of good at everything, and he is just such a pleasure to talk to and to work with. So funny. I don't think at that point that I had laughed as hard as I laughed in that episode, during the filming of that episode, as I did. It was so much fun. I could have talked to him for another 3 or 4 hours, just because I was just having so much fun. He's more into horizontals and I'm more into verticals. And so it was really cool getting that dichotomy of we're both into kind of different things in the same field. It was the first time I'd really ever had that on the show. It was just a really fun discussion, especially when we started talking about Star Fox and his travels as a developer. I had a lot of fun. Pearl, good old Pearl. Pearl was a fucking hoot, dude. The filming of Pearl episode we filmed for about 4.5 hours, and I could only keep about 2.5 of it, because the rest was either we were laughing so hard or the jokes were just a little too raw. It was kind of cool of having someone from the generation before me on, when you talk about shmup generations like we did in that one, really get to see the differences in how he makes videos and how everyone else does. The man, the myth, the legend, Des Maku. Des is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He is a true gentleman. There are not words to describe how awesome of a person Des Maku is. He is a lot like me, where he keeps himself busy. Getting to have him on my show was so cool, especially watching him as well. The only thing that sucked about that one is that was filmed on a day that I had to work, so we had to cut it very short, and I could have ended up talking to him for another 2 or 3 hours after that. MJ Oldham, the developer of Shmundala. This was the first time I'd ever had someone that was actively promoting a game on the pod. I didn't know yet how to broach that subject, he is an amazing human being, and the conversation we had was very good. But in the future, now I'll know a little bit better how to approach like promotion when it comes to shows. Then we come to Hazy Levels. Hazy is truly one of a kind. I was extremely honored to have him appear on the No Miss podcast. Collaboration is a thing that you never know where it's going to go because you don't have complete control over it. And I understand that. And to this day, I'll always be thankful and feel blessed that he put himself out there for me. And so, Hazy, I know you're watching this. Thank you. You're an amazing human being, and it was a wonderful, wonderful talk. And I'll do it again anytime. And then finally, we have the Season 1 finale, Spiders STG. Me and Spiders have been talking the longest out of anyone. Since about November of last year, we started talking on Reddit over Sentinel West. And we might not always agree, but he is a friend I'll have till the end. He is just super helpful, super knowledgeable. The way that he thinks is so singular that I don't know where half the stuff is coming from in his head. I wish that I could peer into his brain for a second just to see how it feels to be him for a minute, if that makes sense. Talking about the episode for a second, it felt like verbal fencing. Not in the way of like having to defend myself, but of having to always stay on my toes. And that was such a cool feeling of having to kind of, always be listening. Be like active listening. And then he also said that he would appear every 8 to 10 episodes, and that kind of made me happy that he volunteered to do that because he was one of the first people that I started liking his videos after the Electric Underground. So one thing I'll say that encapsulates all of Season 1 is I'm extremely fortunate to be in the position that I'm in, and extremely fortunate that you guys are tuning in to this show. And I hope that I continue to, if not entertain you, then at least be thoughtful and make you think. Because I know, like, there's been conversations I've had with people where they say, oh, all these things have already been said, all these talking points have already been made. But if we approached it like that, we would never do anything ever, because every single movie's already been made, every single plot's already been done, every single game style's been done, every single piece of art has already been made. So why do anything? And if I start thinking like that, I'll go down such an awful rabbit hole that I'll never get out. So I can't think like that. All I can do is continue doing this, continue having fun, and continue broaching subjects. It's so hard for me to put myself out here like this because you see all of me. I don't hide anything from you guys. Everything is out in the open. I think in that way, there's a vulnerability there that appeals to others, that brings others in. I'm only human. And I hope that I can keep that going throughout Season 2 and beyond. As always, if anyone is interested in, talking or being on the podcast or anything else, hit me up at my email, which should be somewhere around here right now. And thank you for tuning into the first episode of Power Moves. I hope that, it wasn't too boring, I guess. All right. Stay frosty.